What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, back with another NFL draft video. In this video, I'm going to discuss the Cincinnati Bengals draft and give you their draft grade for this year. And really, when you look at the Cincinnati Bengals, they're a team to me that are a better roster than a lot of people actually think. The Cincinnati Bengals are not a team or a roster that's far away from being a playoff caliber team. So when you looked at the Cincinnati Bengals last year, their biggest need, and obviously losing two of their best offensive linemen, hit their offense the most. They also had a ton of injuries on that side of the ball. I felt like in free agency, they did a good job of addressing some of their needs. Picking up a guy like a Preston Brown at linebacker definitely helps. But looking at this year's draft, really the biggest need was to go after an offensive lineman and then kind of address some of your extra depth concerns amongst your defense and your offense. So looking at the Bengals draft, they go in the first round, 21st overall, Billy Price, Ohio State center. This is a guy that, yes, he's coming off a pec injury from the combine, but he should be a day one starter for this team and will be a solid contributor for this team for a number of years. Just a plug and play guy, a guy that you can count on, a guy that will be solid. And they needed a center, so it makes a lot of sense. They really needed to kind of enhance the talent of their interior offensive line. And I think Billy Price definitely adds to that. And then you go in the second round, you get a Jesse Bates. Not necessarily their biggest need at free safety, but I felt like a Jesse Bates, an athlete that can come in and it kind of just help that defense out and get this secondary a little bit younger. So I think Jesse Bates, not a bad move. Maybe they could have went more of a need-heavy prospect here in the second round, but obviously they felt like he's an athletic safety. He'll help with the depth early on, and maybe he'll turn into a really good player for them in the future. And then in the third round, I think they have a really good round. They get Sam Hubbard of Ohio State, who was projected to be a second-round pick, a guy that is just a solid defensive end, and he can definitely add to that depth up front. He's not a great pass rusher, but he's good in every area. You know, he can stop the run. He's athletic enough to get outside and, you know, contain and set the edge for your defense, but he can also get after the passer a lot. He works really hard on the field. He has a good motor. So I think Sam Hubbard, good player, can add to the depth there. And then you have Malik Jefferson, a player that just a year ago was looked at as maybe a first-round pick. Malik Jefferson, I think, is going to come in, and he maybe even get some playing time when Vontaze Burfict is suspended. But when Vontaze Burfict comes back, he kind of sits in there as a backup linebacker for them. So just adding to the front seven depth there with Jefferson and Hubbard in the third round was very solid. Then you get a Mark Walton, who's basically a Giovanni Bernard clone, small, super shifty from Miami. Yards after catch, he's going to be a receiver for you. Giovanni Bernard, pretty good player in that role as well. Maybe they might be looking to move on from him in the future, and I think Walton can give them something similar with not the same price tag. So we'll see what happens in that scenario. Devontae Harris, corner in the fifth round. He's tall. He really does fit the bill of what the Bengals do like in corners. Tall, good in zone, good ball skills. You know, they already have a William Jackson there, who I feel is like one of the more underrated players in the league at corner. You know, they have Kirkpatrick, who's okay. So they have a decent corner group, but just adding depth there, again, is not a bad move. They then add a D tackle and Andrew Brown, another corner in the fifth round in Darius Phillips. They get another guard for the interior of their offensive line, a need pick there, and then a receiver, which I think is another need pick, just adding some depth to the receiver, and Auden Tate. And Logan Woodside, who's just a quarterback, you know, maybe they could just throw him on the roster and see what he has. So the Bengals, to me, I actually gave them a B+. I really like their draft. I think they got a lot of depth for their defense here. They added a couple of offensive linemen, specifically Billy Price in the first round, which I felt was their biggest need. And then they just add their depth to their team, and I think the Bengals are already a pretty good roster that's not too far away from being a playoff team. We'll see how Andy Dalton performs this year. They're getting Tyler Eifert back this year. AJ Green will be healthier. They have a solid run game. Joe Mixon in year number 2 hopefully will, and with Billy Price there, hopefully will help open holes for him. The defense is already pretty solid. Maybe they could have added a pass rusher, maybe a little bit higher in the draft, because I do feel like they could have added an edge guy there, but Sam Hubbard is good nonetheless. So I really felt like the Bengals had a good draft here. They could have maybe went receiver, but John Ross is a guy that they drafted really high with high expectations, and he didn't really get to play last year, so maybe they want to give him a chance before moving on from him. So the Bengals, good draft. I give it a B+ in this year's draft.